Hello guys. In this video we're going to be discussing Python basic data types and essentially the types of data you're going to use when you're using the language. So let's jump right in. So basically the data types you're going to use in this language consist of integers, floats, booleans, the none type, dictionaries, list, and a couple operators which we'll show below. But your typical integer is just going to be a whole number, and in Python you can basically add that. So if we wanted to assign it to a variable right here at a, so 2 plus 2, that's going to be 4, is equal to a. So all that a variable is essentially another name for a piece of data. So we could do this 2 minus 2, and it'd be 0, so a equals 0. So you're basically just telling the computer, hey, this piece of data right here, I want it to be actually called a. Or maybe you have a different name, like antler. Like you want this variable name, antler, to equal 4. So again, these variable names could be called anything, but in order to set a variable to an integer, or any data type in general, you just do a string or a name right here and an equal sign in the middle, and then whatever to the right. So you can see down below floats. Floats are basically when you need a little bit more precise numerical data. So let's say you're working with the number pi, 3.14. That's when you would use a float. So you can see the same variable assignment here. So you just have a variable b equal to 3.14. So the next data type, a list, is basically a collection of the same type of data that's ordered based on an index. So the crazy thing about a list are, and this confuses a lot of people in programming, is that lists start at an index of 0. So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3. So we have a length of 4 items within this list. And in order to make a list, you essentially just have these brackets right here, and then the same type of data in it. So let's say you want a list of numbers. You do the same thing. Numbers equals 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can see they're all separated by commas except the last one. So here we have a list of strings, four items, and the index starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. The same with the numbers. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 as the values, and the indexes are the same since it's the same length. 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's say you wanted to print the in the index 1, you're actually printing out the second item. So remember, when you're doing by index for arrays, 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's say you want the first item, you do 0. So just imagine whatever you say, like first, second, third, fourth, fifth item in a list, just subtract that by 1, and that you'll get the index of value. So let's say you want the last item. If you know that the length of the array is 4, 4 minus 1 equals 3. So that would be the last item. But also in list, you can access the index in backwards order. So you can do -1. So if you minus 1 from the list, it gets the first element from the right. The second element from the right is -2. The third element from the right is -3. So let's say you wanted like the third element from the right. You can do -3, and that would produce the idiot. So let's just return that to 1. But with list, you basically access the element or the value based on their index. And this is very useful for iteration or for loops because you'll be able to count in a certain range. So like let's say from 0 to 10, if this were 10 items, you could do a for loop over it. So again, a list is just a collection of items of the same type of data. So either strings, numbers, booleans, what have you, and they're ordered based on that index. So again, remember the first element is 0, and it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. If you want the length of an array, you just take that variable name. So let's say we want the length of Russian novels. Then you have len Russian novels. So open parentheses, close parentheses. So this is just a built-in Python function. Booleans, they're very useful in programming because you can set states for true or false. So if I have this statement variable, I also call it false. And they're very useful for conditionals. So like when you have if, else conditions, and you want to basically run code based on that branching. So if this statement is true, then run this code. Else, if this statement is true, run this code. And if it's false, then run this code. You can also have an absence of a value, or none type in Python. Compared to other languages, they're also called different things. In Go, it's called nil. But this is also something that you can use for conditionals, and it's very helpful. So dictionaries are basically an unordered list of key value pairs, and they can be any type. So let's say you have a string key and integer value. So you're basically in this dictionary. It almost acts like a dictionary. You look up the word and then you get the definition. So for this, Elaine, we want to figure out what her grade is. So this is the 88 value. And you'll see it's similarly accessed by the index indicator with the brackets. But you can call it by the key value. So for example, let's say you wanted the grade for Cosmo. You would take the dictionary name, student grades, and access it with that string Cosmo, and it will return 77. Let's say that you wanted to modify this dictionary, so you don't want it to stay static, you want to actually change the grades. Let's say George wants to change his grade, so you would access the dictionary with the George key, and from the student grades dictionary, and then just add it. So plus equals 20. And this will change it from 76 to 96. And you'll see that down below what this basically means, but it's basically shorthand to add 20 to the value itself. So in this case, you're just doing 76 plus 20 in shorthand. And then you can also just print the dictionary right here. So after all our changes, you'll see that the modification to the George value from 76 plus 20 equals 96. So finally here I wanted to kind of discuss some special operators that you can use often when you're coding in Python. So you have this modulus symbol right here. So this basically just gives you a remainder. So 9 divided by 2, you'll be able to divide into 9 4 times, and there'll be a remainder of 1. So just think about when you see a modulus symbol, it's just a remainder. So that's 1. Let's say that you had 11. So 2 goes into 11 5 times, and there's a remainder of 1. So this is also very useful for conditionals for certain types of algorithmic and data structure questions. You can also divide into numbers using this forward slash. You can add numbers by this plus symbol. You could subtract numbers with the subtract symbol, and you can times or multiply numbers with the asterisk or star symbol. And then for the shorthand we used earlier, let's say you have a count equals 1. You could do count equals count plus 1. So 1 plus 1 equals count. So this new count will equal to 2. Now let's say you want to do shorthand. You're basically just saying the same thing with this shorthand, plus equals. So I want to add and reassign the value of count. So if this is 1 and you add 1, this equals 2. And if you do the same thing now, it equals 3. But yeah, it's just shorthand. So you're reassigning this variable count by referencing the variable itself, plus 1, and then you just do the same thing shorthand right here. So these are just basically the basic data structures for Python, how you're going to be using them. For the dictionaries and arrays, just remember that you can call in list the elements you want based on index, which start at 0. So if you want the first element in an array, you would do Russian novels 0. If you want the third item in an array, you would do Russian novels 2. And again, we use these bracket formation after the list variable name, and then we access it with a number. And then if you just want to set a list, you just do with any other variable, whatever you want to call it, equals open parentheses and then the same type of data separated by commas. So in this first one, we basically use strings of Russian novels, so the Russian novel titles separated by commas, and you have a closed bracket right here. Same with the numbers, open bracket, closed bracket, 1, 2, 3, 4, separated by commas. And then dictionaries, you set it up by using the open brace and closed brace, and you can basically have a key value pair separated by a colon. And once you're ended inputting the value, you separate it with a comma. So this is its own line, this second one's its own line, but the key can be anything. It can be a number, it can be a bool, or a boolean, sorry, and the value could be anything as well. So you can use mismatched data types, but it's often easier to use strings here in the key value pair because it makes it easier to index for your dictionary. And you can also access items in a dictionary similar to an index. You do the open bracket right here, and then you just basically put in the key. So this can also be a variable, which we'll see in a future video lesson. But right here, we know we want to access the Cosmo key within the dictionary in order to get the value or the grade of Cosmo. So overall, that's basically the special operators and data types for Python. Thanks.